Zhou Chuan, who had finished the awakening ceremony, looked at the blue-silver grass martial soul in his hand and felt the 2 levels of innate soul power in his body. The corner of his mouth gradually rose. As long as it's a plant martial soul, that's good. Zhou Chuan said with a smile on his face. Feeling the inheritance in his mind, Zhou Chuan carefully comprehended it. Ronmu Qingxian method. The method of forming immortals for different immortals. It accommodates 100 herbs and transforms into immortals 7 times. Introduction. Practicing this method can blend 7 types of plants and trees into one, forming the greenwood immortal body, blending the 7 spiritual powers of plants and trees into one, forming the grasswood divine power with boundless magical power and infinite lifespan. Various celestial beings, other worlds will be interspersed like dungeons. Chapter 1. Immortal Cultivation Method and Infinite Space Core Fragments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Martial Soul Blue Silver Grass, Innate Soul Power Level 2, not bad. Su Yuntao shook his head slightly. Even though Blue Silver Grass, a useless martial soul, had some cultivation, its overall performance was still too weak. Standing in front of Su Yuntao was a 6-year-old child, a somewhat emaciated ordinary child. Zhou Chuan looked at the blue-silver grass in his hand and the soul power that brought a hint of warmth to his body, with a joyful smile on his face. Having soul power or plant martial soul is really great, Zhou Chuan felt delighted in his heart. Hey, what are you still standing for? It's my turn. The voices of other children came from behind. Zhou Chuan restrained his joy in his heart and quickly stepped aside to the side. Watching the scenes before him, Zhou Chuan gradually calmed down. Through time, extraordinary, and familiar scenes. Zhou Chuan's mind flashed with thoughts. Originally, Zhou Chuan was just a group of beings on Earth. Unexpectedly, when he came into contact with a glowing and incomplete substance, he was reincarnated into the Dolua continent. Ding, a crisp voice sounded, and a light screen appeared in front of Zhou Chuan. The incomplete structure appears within it, operating a mysterious power, with a large amount of garbled code and incompleteness making this light screen look exceptionally simple. Although it's just a core fragment that exists in an infinite space, fortunately it still retains a little bit of ability, which is not bad, Zhou Chuan thought to himself. Having a golden finger is already a fortunate thing, and Zhou Chuan has no regrettable thoughts. My gaze turned to 2 clear options amidst a pile of garbled codes, redemption, and crossing. Zhou Chuan's heart moved as he clicked on the exchange, and a new panel appeared in front of him. There's one more. Zhou Chuan was slightly taken aback, then frowned. On a pile of garbled panels, there are 2 clear options. Ronmu Qingxian Method Iron Cloth Shirt. A few months ago, I solved the mystery of the fetus and restored the memories of the previous life. Since then, there has only been one immortal method here. Zhou Chuan pondered in his heart why a redemption option appeared. There hasn't been any change for several months. After I awakened my martial soul power, new options appeared, which are related to my own improvement. Zhou Chuan had some speculations in his heart, but these were not important now. What was important was the immortal method. I don't know who my father is in this lifetime. My mother, who passed away a year ago, has a rolling pin as her martial soul, which can be considered a wooden type, but unfortunately, she doesn't have soul power. Zhou Chuan lowered his head and pondered. So from the beginning, Zhou Chuan knew that his martial soul talent was definitely not high, and whether he had soul power was also an unknown factor. But with the cultivation of immortality, these are not important anymore. The only important thing is whether the martial soul has a wood attribute. Because the dissolving wood green immortal technique is not a righteous immortal technique, but a heterologous immortal cultivation technique, a safe and evil external path. Name: Ronmu Qingxian Method. Type: Martial Arts. Effect: Qingmu Immortal, with a lifespan equal to that of the heavens. Soul transformation: can resist the dust of 100,000 years, and has different degrees of divine powers and Taoist practices depending on the extraordinary plants melted. Cultivation method. Melt extraordinary plants as the foundation, refine 7 different extraordinary plants, melt them together, and become the Qingmu Immortal. Cultivation requirements. The minimum standard for extraordinary plants is plants with spiritual or special mysterious powers. Note: the 7 types of extraordinary plants determine the ultimate cultivation level of the Qingmu Immortal, and also determine the power of divine powers. Attention! The foundation of the Qingmu Immortal cultivated in this method is a process of mutual fusion, which will gradually erode the human body. If it cannot be stopped or perfectly fused, it will gradually be eroded into a plant. This method is suitable for plant-type semi-demons, symbiotic or special fusion-type abilities. Zhou Chuan's gaze was focused on the last line of text, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The martial soul is born from within my body, and there is no such problem of erosion. The negative impact of this method can be completely ignored. Zhou Chuan felt the blue-silver grass martial soul in his own body and thought to himself. Combined with the various fairy grasses in this world, it's simply a perfect match. The strangeness of Xianqiao, if refined into the martial soul of blue-silver grass, can definitely form an extraordinary divine power. In addition, each fairy grass has the ability to transform itself and add potential. It is hard to imagine what kind of qualification it would be if 7 fairy grass were stacked together. Combined with a soul ring, it can be considered a double enhancement, never weaker than the twin martial souls. Alright. The ceremony is over. Su Yuntao's voice suddenly sounded, and then he was seen walking out. Zhou Chuan looked at his back and suddenly let out a breath. The expected path may be beautiful, but the most important thing now is still cultivation. Immortal grass is not something easy to obtain. Dugu Bo is not a kind person, and caring about him is not a safe thing. Tang San was able to succeed because of his father Lu Di, who solved Dugu Bo's problem on his own. Otherwise, he would not have known where to die. I have to think of a safe way before Tang San. Zhou Chuan and the other children walked out, thinking to themselves. In the past few months of restoring past life memories, Zhou Chuan has also learned about the surroundings. When Zhou Chuan noticed the martial soul, his first thought was Dolua continent. After all, this thing had a high popularity. And the news of the inquiry also confirmed this point. This is Qinghe village, a village within the scope of Nodding City. Xinghun village is not far from here. Tang Hao is still a blacksmith, and his son is 5 years old this year. That is to say, Tang San is 1 year younger than me. Zhou Chuan pushed open the door and returned to the empty cabin. In a year's time, it's probably difficult to catch up with the gap of level 8, Zhou Chuan shook his head slightly and sat on the grass bed. With a movement in my heart, the redemption panel appeared in front of me. Just now in front of the person, Zhou Chuan did not make any exchange, fearing that some anomalies would attract attention. Looking at those 2 options, Zhou Chuan focused his attention on the immortal cultivation method. With a slight flash, the option of the wood dissolving green immortal technique disappeared. A large amount of information appeared in my mind, and the inheritance of the entire immortal method was deeply remembered in an instant. The influx of a large amount of information, even with protection, left Zhou Chuan stunned for a long time. For a long time, Zhou Chuan's eyes regained their expression, and an uncontrollable smile appeared on his face. Using this method to cultivate soul power, even if the immortal grass has not yet undergone transformation, it is much faster than simple meditation. At this moment, Zhou Chuan's gaze noticed the redemption panel, which still retained the remaining redemption items. Iron cloth shirt, iron cloth shirt. Zhou Chuan gazed at the exchange item and thought for a moment before deciding to exchange it. Whether it's the immortal cultivation method or the blue-silver grass, the early combat and survival abilities are very low. If this method can be practiced to supplement, it can greatly increase the early abilities and survival abilities. Immediately redeem, a large amount of information flooded into my mind once again. Iron cloth shirt, external skill, version from a martial arts world. The ultimate result of training is a body full of steel and iron bones, with boundless strength. It is like a treasure armor, indestructible, and has various supernatural qualities. The second layer is full of steel and iron, and the fourth layer, with a perfect description, is even more exaggerated and truly a version of the Zhongwu world. Zhou Chuan praised it twice before refocusing his attention on the immortal cultivation technique. This is the most important thing. Chapter 2. Greenwood Immortal Foundation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhou Chuan sat cross-legged, calmly breathing and adjusting his own state. When the sound from all around pierced through his ears but could not cause any waves, Zhou Chuan knew it was time. With his hands imprinted and his heart silently reciting the technique of dissolving wood and green immortals, his mind focused on the martial soul of the blue-silver grass. The blue light shone on Zhou Chuan's chest, and the blue-silver grass slowly drifted out. The thin second-level soul power in the body feels a bit awkward to control, gradually following the trajectory of the dissolving wood-green immortal technique. A trace of soul power rises in mysterious changes during operation, and the combination of fingerprints and spirit creates a mysterious change in the surrounding environment. The intricate threads of mystery gathered over. Soul power operates within Zhou Chuan's body, forming a complete cycle. A refined power is bestowed upon the blue-silver grass martial soul. Almost without any obstacles, in an instant, the foundation of Qingmu Immortal was successfully cast. The whole process was very smooth, and the blue-silver grass was inspired by this magical power. The more fundamental power has been demonstrated, no longer as ordinary as before. The tenacious vitality and adaptability to growth are stimulated, and the soul power gradually fills with vitality. Zhou Chuan's aura became stronger, and during the process of building the foundation, he upgraded his innate soul power by one level. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhou Chuan carefully sensed his own changes. This kind of vitality. Zhou Chuan's eyes lit up, although not strong, the key to victory lies in endless growth. In the initial cultivation of iron cloth shirt, there is no need for medicinal herbs, and this soul power can also ensure that one does not harm their inner self. From the perspective of inheritance information, although iron cloth shirts are popular goods, they are not ordinary. The cultivation effect is very strong, and besides the internal organs, it can achieve comprehensive physical enhancement, which is also helpful for refining soul rings. The limitation of soul ring age mainly lies in the strength of the body's meridians. The iron cloth shirt is precisely for exercising the body, and the third layer can enhance the meridians. If I practice it to the third layer earlier, I can try to break through the soul ring age earlier. This idea flashed through Zhou Chuan's mind. Shaking his head, Zhou Chuan officially began using the immortal cultivation method for cultivation. People practice soul power, but the requirements for power in the immortal cultivation method are not strict. After all, it is a crooked path. What requires strict requirements are the foundation of Qingmu Xian and extraordinary plants. At the beginning of his cultivation, Zhou Chuan noticed the difference. Compared to the second-level soul power just now, the control is a bit easier. The soul power within the body is slowly increasing at an almost imperceptible rate, and at this rate, it is unknown whether it can be improved by 1 or 2 levels of soul power per year. According to Tang San's growth trajectory in the original work, before level 30, his innate full soul power only grew at a rate of about level 3 per year. A third-level innate talent is probably only 1 or 2 levels of improvement in a year. Zhou Chuan felt his cultivation carefully, his heart sinking slightly. This is just a difference in cultivation speed. The 3 cultivation levels of level 30, level 50, and level 70 are not a big problem for innate soul power. For soul power below level 3, the first level of level 30 is very difficult, and it is entirely possible to spend several decades. Zhou Chuan's expression suddenly changed, and he noticed some anomalies during the cultivation process. Although it was his first time practicing, Zhou Chuan, who has been a person for 2 generations, is indeed a bit stronger than ordinary people in terms of soul. With keen perception, he discovered some anomalies, and after several searches, he locked onto the blue-silver grass in front of his chest. Or rather, it is the foundation of Qingmu Immortal. There is also soul power in the blue-silver grass martial soul, which is being cultivated at a similar frequency to Zhou Chuanqi and slowly increasing at the same speed. Zhou Chuan immediately stopped practicing, and the blue-silver grass soul returned to his body, accompanied by a surge of soul power. This. Zhou Chuan's face couldn't help but show surprise, and he said excitedly, "Isn't this equivalent to dual-core cultivation? Although it's just the accumulation of 2 innate third-level soul power cultivation speeds, in terms of cultivation speed, it should be stronger than innate 5th-level soul power, right?" Zhou Chuan guessed excitedly. In the Soul Master system, the type of martial soul quality determines combat effectiveness and affects the level of soul power. The level of soul power affects the speed of cultivation and the difficulty of several levels in the future. With the Rongmu Qingxian technique in place, Zhou Chuan is not worried about the levels after his advanced cultivation. By then, we will definitely have refined extraordinary plants or immortal herbs, fundamentally improving our qualifications. These levels are not a big problem. The initial cultivation speed is the most difficult problem. At my current cultivation speed, I should be able to grow faster. Zhou Chuan smiled at the corner of his mouth and continued to practice cross-legged. The quota for working students has been set, and more than half a month later, under the leadership of the village chief, they will go to Notting City. In the streets of Notting City, there is an elderly man with a relatively strong physique, accompanied by a skinny child. "Xiao Chuan, don't cause trouble when you arrive at school. Stay away from those aristocratic students, don't get into conflicts, and work hard to cultivate," the village chief said, clutching Zhou Chuan's small hand. Zhou Chuan looked helplessly at his grabbed arm, as if afraid of losing it. Nodding, It can be considered a response. After walking for a while, a college appeared in front of the two of them. Notting College. The village chief approached and smiled at the gatekeeper, saying, "This little brother, we are from Qinghe village, and this child is our village's working-class student this year." After speaking, he handed over the certificate issued by the Martial Soul Hall in his hand. The person looked at the old man who was 1 head taller than himself as he walked up to him, his mouth twitching slightly. Picking up the proof in his hand, he glanced at it twice. His martial soul was blue-silver grass, with innate 2nd-level soul power, and he pursed his lips. "Bad luck." The person grumbled twice and threw the proof back. "Little ghost, go in alone and follow the sign on the roadside to the Academic Affairs Office, where the new students will report." Zhou Chuan nodded at the words and looked at the village chief. "Go in. You'll start a new life from now on," the village chief waved his hand and said with a smile. "Grandpa village chief, goodbye," Zhou Chuan said calmly before turning around and entering the college. Zhou Chuan didn't feel much about Qinghe village, but he was very grateful to the village chief. After all, at the age of 5, both parents had already passed away, making it very difficult to survive. Moreover, there are also family assets that people care about. If it weren't for the village chief, it's very likely that he would have become a beggar and wandered somewhere. "I may have starved to death on the streets before I can recover my past life memories." Although the cost is that the family property is managed by the village chief, he has already gained soul power, and Zhou Chuan doesn't care about those few acres of land. It's worth it to survive peacefully and wake up at the age of 6. Zhou Chuan walked on the road to the college, looking at the cobblestone road under his feet, the green grass and trees on both sides, and a faint smile appeared on his calm face. For 6 years, besides practicing, I also need to carefully plan for the future. Chapter 3. After 1 year. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 1 year later. In a medicinal herb shop, the lights are still rising. Ogawa, here you are. This is your salary from last month. A middle-aged man with a goatee, holding a small bag in his hand, placed it in front of Zhou Chuan. Listening to the crisp collision sound, Zhou Chuan nodded without stopping the medicinal herbs in his hand. Looking at the child in front of him who looked like a small adult, the owner of the medicinal herb shop nodded. Although young, he was not hesitant in his work. And he is also proficient in the preparation methods of several medicinal herbs, which is not inferior to ordinary preparation masters. However, he is a soul master who needs to go to school and can only come to work in the afternoon and evening every day. If you become an apprentice, you will definitely become a master of medicinal herb preparation in the future. Zhou Chuan, it's getting late. Pack up and go back. Okay. Zhou Chuan nodded. After processing the medicinal herbs in hand and packing them all properly, I greeted them before leaving the medicinal shop. Moonlight fills the streets, and Nodding City is a small town, but its location is unique, and at night it is not completely dark and brightly lit. I don't know how long this payment can last, Zhou Chuan thought as he walked. I clenched my fist and my muscles tightened all over. If anyone touched me afterwards, I would feel that Zhou Chuan's skin had a tough texture of cowhide. In a year's time, the iron cloth shirt finally entered the first layer, the cloth realm. The strength has increased significantly, even without soul power, it is not much weaker than adults. Zhou Chuan released his tightly clenched palm. Place your hand in front of you and look at the slightly rough skin. Unfortunately, currently I can only cultivate to this level. The difficulty and intensity of cultivating in the second realm of Iron Cloth realm have doubled. With my body that has not yet fully developed, I am unable to cultivate at all. The minimum age is 12 years old, and now I can only practice the matching techniques of hitting and bending muscles and bones, and cannot engage in formal horizontal training methods, Zhou Chuan thought to himself. Zhou Chuan recalled the memory of inheritance, and the first layer of cloth clothing environment itself laid the foundation. The second level is the true horizontal practice. Generally, children start practicing from the age of 8 or 9, and it takes 3 to 5 years to reach the first level, which has no significant impact. The Zhou celestial body has soul power that generates vitality, which is why one dares to cultivate from the age of 6. In theory, I am young and afraid of any problems, so I reduced the cultivation time of the first layer of the iron cloth shirt by half. It only took me a year to complete it. It seems that my talent in this area is very good. Zhou Chuan looked up at the entrance of the college and walked towards the dormitory, thinking about it. This is good news, much stronger than my soul power cultivation talent. After exerting his inner soul power, Zhou Chuan's face slightly collapsed. Until now, there is only 6 levels of soul power, and I have tried my best to cultivate, but only improved by 3 levels. Upgrading by 3 levels a year seems pretty good. But this is a level below level 10, and the entire Soul Master system is the easiest to level up. After level 10, the difficulty of cultivation will significantly increase, and this is true for every level 10. I am a dual-core cultivator, and according to normal qualifications, I can only improve by more than 1 level. After 10 levels, it may be a bit difficult to improve by 1 level a year. Zhou Chuan frowned and clearly felt the difficulty of cultivating low-level soul power. I must change my qualifications as soon as possible, otherwise I'm afraid I won't be able to keep up with the development of the original plot, Zhou Chuan thought to himself. Returning to the dormitory, there was silence. There are still a few days until the start of school, and not many people have come yet. Returning to his own bed, Zhou Chuan sat cross-legged. Tang San should have awakened his martial soul now, right? He has innate full soul power, and I have been chasing him for a year, but he is still 4 levels behind. Zhou Chuan's face was very calm without any fluctuations, appearing cold. Xianqiao, if it can be refined, its qualifications can be changed immediately. Unfortunately. That's out of reach for me now. Not to mention the tidal dolua of Dugubo, nor to mention the poisonous mist outside the eyes of ice and fire. Just the toxicity of the fairy grass in the valley and the toxic environment spreading out as a whole can quickly poison the current Zhou Chuan. In the original work, Tang San entered over 30 levels and was warned by Dugubo not to run aimlessly, as he would be poisoned to death. The degree of danger in that place can be imagined, which is not something that Zhou Chuan can think of now. There is no hope in the short term, but we cannot wait. In the current situation, it is impossible to get the fairy grass before the plot. Zhou Chuan frowned slightly and continued to ponder in his heart. In addition, there are also variables, which are time travel. Looking ahead, a screen lit up, with options for time travel, one for time travel, one for reincarnation, and 2 progress bars. Reincarnation is still gray, without any reaction. The progress bar of crossing has a slight light. Although I'm not sure how to improve this progress bar, since I obtained the martial soul, it has been growing slightly, but the speed is too slow to count on. Zhou Chuan felt a bit helpless in his heart. Judging from these 2 options, time travel was definitely just a temporary trip to another world, otherwise why would there be reincarnation? This also conforms to the common sense of infinite space types, as long as one can go to other worlds and learn other systems for enhancement. It is possible to change the current stalemate. At the rate of increasing this point this year, it may not take more than a decade, and by then the yellow cauliflower will be cold. We can't rely on external variables, so we can only find a way out from the original plot. Zhou Chuan shook his head slightly. Special plants should not be too low level, but have full potential to change my own situation. The difficulty of obtaining them should not be too high, at least it is possible, even if it is a bit dangerous. Blue Silver Emperor. Zhou Chuan was suddenly taken aback, and these 3 words popped up in his heart. In the original work, the place where the Blue Silver Emperor seeds regrow during this time period seems to be nearby, with a large mountain and a waterfall. With these 2 characteristics, you can definitely find it with some time. Moreover, Tang Hao won't stay there. Zhou Chuan's gaze was somewhat profound, and he kept pondering in his heart. The strength of the tidal dolua is not clear, but it seems to be very fast, if it is near Nodding City. No, it's too dangerous. You must choose when Tang Hao is far away from here. The clear departure time was only when Tang San was 12 years old and went to Shrek College, when Tang Hao appeared. If at that time, there is no way to change qualifications, I'm afraid we will have to take risks. Zhou Chuan slowly closed his eyes and began practicing. The blue-green light lit up, and the breath of life permeated Zhou Chuan's body, healing fatigue and nourishing the body. Blue-silver grass and the body form a dual-core cultivation, increasing cultivation at a double rate. A few days later, the new semester began. Zhou Chuan sat on his bed, flipping through the book in his hand, which detailed the low-level species of plant soul beasts. Wang Xing glanced at Zhou Chuan and shook his head slightly. The unsociable guy. At this moment, the door suddenly opened and a child walked in. Zhou Chuan looked over, his gaze fixed, and at this time and place, Tang San was the only one left. Chapter 4. Enhancement and Decision of Combat Power. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After a glance, Zhou Chuan withdrew his gaze. It has nothing to do with him, the most important thing now is to improve cultivation. Subsequently, there was a battle for the dormitory boss, and although Wang Sheng was in his senior year, he was clearly not a match for Tang San. After being defeated, the door was once again opened, and a crisp sound sounded. Is this Chisha? A simple-dressed but very cute little girl stood in front of the door. Zhou Chuan glanced and continued reading. With my strength and talent, even if I try to fit in, it's impossible for me to blend in. I might still find myself bored. It's better to be a little transparent, study and practice steadily, and wait for the opportunity. In this way, Zhou Chuan was completely immersed in learning and cultivation, out of place with others. The book knowledge in the college is relatively rich, and the information on various types of soul beasts is very detailed. Besides working, practicing and exercising, Zhou Chuan is also learning these knowledge. Blue silver grass. Apart from its vitality and low consumption, it has almost no advantages. Zhou Chuan closed the book in his hand and whispered. Tang San followed a routine of controlling with toxins as a supplement, and his combat effectiveness appeared to be very strong, which was slightly weaker than the top-tier martial souls. But this is because Tang San has rich combat experience, a wide visual observation range, precise and meticulous control of each vine, combined with various other skills and immortal grass transformation, that he has this combat power. If I take this path, I'm afraid I'm looking for death. Zhou Chuan shook his head slightly. Just a broad field of vision alone cannot be achieved by Zhou Chuan. Fine control of every vine is impossible without years or even years of exercise. It is impossible to succeed by blindly imitating others without considering the corresponding situation, Zhou Chuan said to himself. Control is not enough, what about poison? After thinking for a moment, Zhou Chuan shook his head. The corresponding knowledge is too limited, difficult and dangerous, so it can be kept as a reference. Moreover, from the original work, the toxins are not very good either. We can still plan based on the characteristics of the blue-silver grass, vitality. It seems that in the early stages, we can only take the auxiliary route. In the middle and later stages, I should already be able to cultivate immortal techniques, and my martial soul will undergo a significant transformation, which is completely possible. The specific plan will depend on the changes that come later. Moreover, if the initial soul skills were aggressive, they would not be able to keep up with the team in the later stages. Instead, they would be auxiliary or functional, Zhou Chuan said with a smile on his lips. The time for the college passed in a blink of an eye, and Zhou Chuan welcomed his graduation. Zhou Chuan stood at the entrance of the dormitory, looking at the empty dormitory. The innate third-level soul power qualification, even with double cultivation speed, is vastly different from the innate full soul power qualification. The soul power I have improved in the past 5 years is only comparable to others over 2 years, which is still twice the speed of cultivation. Zhou Chuan's mood was somewhat complicated, and he felt the difference in qualifications for the first time. Taking a slight breath, I swept away these emotions and firmly established another idea in my heart. Since the qualifications are not good, let's change them. Zhou Chuan's expression was firm, and he reached out his hand to clench his fist fiercely. Ding! A faint metallic impact sounded between the fists. Fortunately, I have a good talent in physical cultivation. Zhou Chuan walked up to a mirror and stood there looking at himself. Just reaching a height of 1.7 meters, far surpassing his peers, coupled with his strong physique, he doesn't look like a 12-year-old boy at all. If it weren't for the slight immaturity on his face, he would probably be no different from an 18-year-old boy. The soul ring is really magical. In addition to enhancing physical and soul power, it can also enhance some more essential things, Zhou Chuan said to himself as he looked at himself in the mirror. A soul master obtaining a soul ring can break through the level limit, enhance their stamina, and significantly increase their soul power. But now it seems that the improvement is not just that. The gains from refining soul rings may be more essential, while the rest are corresponding side effects. After obtaining the soul ring in the second semester, my growth rate changed. In less than 2 years, I developed to the age of 12, and now I am no different from a 16-year-old boy. Zhou Chuan's eyes twitched slightly as he glanced at Tang San's bed next to him, lost in thought. Tang San. His soul power level seems to have reached level 26. Silence spread in Zhou Chuan's heart. After 6 years of hard work, I have only reached level 18 in cultivation, and the gap is getting bigger and bigger. Zhou Chuan walked to the window household registration and looked in one direction. There is a waterfall there, which is the only waterfall near Nodding City. If I choose this, there is no room for improvement. But if I don't choose, I'm afraid I won't have a chance to obtain the immortal grass. Zhou Chuan narrowed his eyes slightly, a hint of determination flashed by. I am indeed a selfish person. Turning around, Zhou Chuan began packing his things. The opportunity to refine the Blue-Silver Emperor is not at this moment, but 1 year later, Tang San will graduate. That was the perfect opportunity. During this year, Zhou Chuan was not allowed to stay in Nodding City, as he had his own arrangements. In a year's time, soul power must be upgraded to level 20, which is not a big problem, Zhou Chuan whispered as he walked. It has been half a year since Zhou Chuan's soul power was elevated to level 18. With his cultivation speed increasing by more than 1 level every year after level 10, he can definitely reach level 20 in a year. In addition to cultivation, I also need to improve my combat effectiveness. Currently, the fastest and most cost-effective way is to improve the cultivation of the iron cloth shirt. Zhou Chuan felt the power inside his body and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The second layer of the iron cloth shirt has 2 small levels, iron cloth and iron bone. I have reached the perfect state of iron cloth in my cultivation, and my whole body seems to be wearing an iron armor. Even if I don't use my martial arts skills, swords cannot break through defense. Zhou Chuan clenched his fist fiercely, his blood and energy surging, his whole body tense, and his defense greatly increased. In the state of Yun Gong, even a level 20 soul master is difficult to break through defense, and with my crushing power, my combat power is equivalent to that of an ordinary soul master. This is far from enough. With Zhou Chuan's talent in horizontal practice, he can still become stronger. But if you want to continue practicing, you can't do it without a medicinal bath. There can be 2 worlds apart, and the methods of preparing medicinal herbs may still be the same, but medicinal herbs cannot be the same. At least the soul beast has entered a transcendent realm, and its flesh should be able to replace medicinal baths. Zhou Chuan guessed in his heart. Even if it doesn't work, with a vibrant soul power, the damage from forced cultivation can be minimized. However, without a substitute for medicinal baths, the speed of cultivation may be slower. Shake your head slightly, suppress your thoughts, buy a map, and be prepared. The target soul hunting forest, where one accepts employment from others, should be the safest way to obtain the flesh of soul beasts. As for safer purchases, Zhou Chuan doesn't have the money. Glancing at the map, Zhou Chuan left Nodding City. Chapter 5. The Effect of Soul Beast Meat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the dark forest, there should have been silence, but in the distance, noisy sounds gradually came from. Bang bang. The sound of vibration ranges from far to near, accompanied by waves of smoke and collapsed trees. A giant beast rushed out with a loud roar, as majestic as a cow, but it was actually a wild boar. Black armored porcupine, a strong defensive wild boar soul beast with a pitch-black body. A black shadow leaped out from the side, surrounded by 2 soul rings, one white and one yellow. Behind it is a giant bear phantom, clearly a battle soul master. This person has a strong physique and stands in front of the charging black armored porcupine. The second soul ring on his body flickered with a faint light, his body became stronger and his clothes were tightened. Ah! With a roar, the soul warrior threw his fists at the armored porcupine. Boom! The explosive sound drove waves of impact. The war soul master's face turned blood red, his eyes widened as if about to burst, and his face was very fierce. At the moment when the 2 were deadlocked, a figure holding a hammer had already run to the side. 2 white soul rings floated, and white light enveloped the strong body. The strong man let out a roar and swung his hammer. Ah ah! The second soul skill is the tiger hammer. Bang! With a loud bang, the hammer hit the black armored porcupine without reservation. The powerful force poured down on the hind legs and buttocks of the black-armored porcupine, and a crisp sound sounded. Several rolling black-armored porcupines were howling on the ground, their front legs constantly stomping and stumbling as they charged towards the other side. Zhou Chuan looked at the black-armored porcupine stumbling and rushing towards him, his whole body tensed up, bleeding and boiling. Green light flickered on his body, and blue-silver grass appeared one by one, directly entwined around the body of the black-armored porcupine. The body of the black-armored porcupine paused, and all the vines of the blue-silver grass were tightened, and then the roots cracked. Watching this scene, Zhou Chuan exerted force under his feet and rushed out directly. The fist clenched tightly and used all his strength to fiercely hit the nose of the black-armored porcupine. The hair there is the least, which is the weakness of the black-armored porcupine. With a short scream, the black-armored porcupine stiffened and fell to the ground in a daze. Sleeping trough. Don't beat me to death. The War Soul Master's face became anxious and he quickly said. No, I just fainted, don't worry, Captain. Zhou Chuan shook his right hand and said softly. The captain nodded, as long as he wasn't dead. At this moment, two people ran over, a chubby little man and a middle-aged man with a goatee. Goat Lake is another teammate, an agile soul master, and the other is the employer. The chubby little man walked over with a joyful expression and immediately prepared to absorb the soul ring. Looking at the slowly rising yellow soul ring, Zhou Chuan thought of his first soul ring. Yellow, over 100 years old, very ordinary, with abilities that lean towards auxiliary types. Symbiosis. Zhou Chuan whispered. Blue-silver grass grows one by one, with wide leaves tightly attached to the surrounding trunk, creating a symbiotic state. Relying on these trees, waves of soul power flooded into Zhou Chuan's body, allowing him to quickly recover. This power can also be shared with others, as long as Zhou Chuan's blue-silver grass comes into contact with the skin, it can restore soul power. The recovery speed is not fast, after all, it is only a 100-year soul ring. But Zhou Chuan's soul power has already been stimulated with vitality, which can continuously restore the vitality of others and thus recover the injuries. The key to this ability is symbiosis. In the future, as long as my strength becomes stronger, my soul power becomes stronger, or I have more other attribute effects, symbiosis will become incredibly powerful. After all, symbiosis is not one way. Zhou Chuan pondered the possibility of this ability in his heart. For now, Zhou Chuan can use symbiosis to devour the soul power of other soul masters. Life force may be a bit lacking, and others' life force may not necessarily be a good thing, it needs to be filtered or used in other aspects. A wave of fluctuations came over, and Zhou Chuan looked up, and the little chubby guy broke through. Alright, the task is completed. When we go back out of the forest, I will pay the remaining money. The little chubby guy patted his butt and said happily. The black-armored porcupine is not weak, otherwise it wouldn't need 3 great soul masters to deal with it, and the soul skills obtained are naturally not simple. The other people nodded, and Zhou Chuan walked to the body of the black-armored porcupine. Vines emerged one after another, directly tied and woven, forming a bag. Grasping the vines and taking them away, Zhou Chuan walked at the back of the team. Others didn't say anything. After all, it was agreed from the beginning that in the 4-person team, the other 3 were divided into 3 layers each, and Zhou Chuan only had 1 layer, but the body of the hunted soul beast belonged to him. The soul-hunting forest is not very big, and everyone walked out in less than a day. Zhou Chuan looked at the other 3 and nodded before leaving, just a temporary team. Although it is a soul beast, it can also be considered a pig, and most of the meat in its body can be used. Zhou Chuan walked and calculated how long the pig could probably eat. 1 month. Even with Zhou Chuan's great appetite after cultivation, it is enough for a month. In a small courtyard in a nearby town, Zhou Chuan kept punching. At this moment, Zhou Chuan's whole body turned red, and the heat was constantly dissipating, which fully activated his qi and blood. After completing the basic move and activating qi and blood, Zhou Chuan's body shimmered with soul power. Blue-silver grass appeared one by one, rolling up iron blocks of different shapes next to it, forming a series of weapons. Square hammers, round hammers, iron bars, and so on, with different strengths and rhythms, struck Zhou Chuan's body. Zhou Chuan gritted his teeth tightly, and the intense pain stimulated his qi and blood, constantly changing his moves to drive him forward. Qi and blood oscillate in the confrontation, seeping into the skin, flesh and blood, and trying their best to penetrate deep into the bones. As long as you delve deeper, you can break through and reach the iron bone realm. At this level, with the core support, Zhou Chuan not only greatly increases his defensive strength, but also gradually keeps up with his defense. I truly unleashed the power of the iron cloth shirt, but of course, this is just the beginning. The shock deepened, and the pain pierced into the brain like a drill bit, with a faint smell of blood pouring into the throat. Until a certain moment, qi and blood seeped into the bones, and then smoothly penetrated through the entire body's bones. For a long time, Zhou Chuan opened his eyes and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. There has been a significant increase in strength. Zhou Chuan clenched his fist and felt even stronger support, allowing him to unleash his strength without reservation. Unfortunately, there was no corresponding decoction and some internal organs were injured. Zhou Chuan frowned slightly, enduring the pain. Sit down and prepare for another type of cultivation, where the blue-silver grass spreads around and coexists with the plants and trees. The phantom of the martial soul appeared from the chest, and the dissolving wood-green immortal technique was activated. The soul power that stimulates vitality flows continuously within the body, as if a clear spring caresses the whole body, bringing a hint of vitality. Quickly, the pain caused by cultivation was healed, and Zhou Chuan continued his cultivation the next day. Breaking through the realm and entering a period of strength growth, Zhou Chuan worked even harder. Day after day of cultivation, Zhou Chuan's body became even stronger. After using up the flesh of the soul beast, he teamed up in the nearby soul-hunting forest to retrieve the soul beast's flesh. This made Zhou Chuan's strength stronger day by day, until it reached a bottleneck. Zhou Chuan slowly finished work, feeling the state of iron and steel completion, opened his eyes, and looked into the distance. It's almost graduation season and we can start preparing. Feeling the soul power that had only been elevated to level 20 in his body a week ago, Zhou Chuan became increasingly curious about the changes that would occur after truly practicing the dissolving wood-green immortal technique. My martial soul will transform, and after each devouring, there is a possibility of obtaining the prototype of divine powers and spells. I wonder if I will obtain it. Chapter 6 First Foundation. Blue-Silver Emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nodding City is a bit more noisy than before. Zhou Chuan walked along the roadside, listening to the voices of people coming and going, and the most common thing was the names of two people. Tang San and Xiao Wu. As a genius with innate soul power, he has a considerable reputation in this city. Especially during graduation season, the two did not choose any intermediate or advanced soul master academy, which became a topic of discussion for many people. Have you already left? Zhou Chuan lowered his brow, pondering the timing. It is still uncertain whether Tang Hao has left, and it is uncertain whether he will depart immediately after graduation season or return to Holy Soul Village first. But one thing is certain, the day before Shrek College registered, Tang San and Xiao Wu arrived at Soto City. Zhou Chuan's heart was calm. Taking chestnuts from the fire is both dangerous and dangerous. If you don't be fully prepared, you will be risking your life. The registration time for Shrek College is 1 month later, and when there are only 3 days left, I will take action. It should be the safest, Zhou Chuan said to himself. I returned to the village once a month and gave my few acres of land to the village chief completely, which was considered a gesture of gratitude. Subsequently, Zhou Chuan returned to the village and officially gave the few acres of land to the village chief's family. After staying for a few days, I returned to the city of Notting and learned about the city while practicing. When there were still 3 days left until the registration day for Shrek College, Zhou Chuan knew it was time to leave. Outside the city of Notting, there is only one high mountain, on which waterfalls pour down. Zhou Chuan looked up at the towering mountain peak, and his heart stirred up a wave. The change in life began from here. Bang! A crisp collision sound sounded. 5 fingers, like chisels, were nailed to the smooth stone wall. The other hand followed closely, and a crisp voice kept ringing as Zhou Chuan began to climb. The powerful physique of the iron bone realm makes 5 fingers incredibly hard, making it easy to chisel into stones. So even if some rock walls are incredibly smooth, Zhou Chuan can still climb. Even so, the entire process remains extremely difficult. It was not until late at night that Zhou Chuan found the place described in the original work in a very high place. The Cultivation Valley in the original work. It's successful. Zhou Chuan climbed up and lay by the cliff, laughing happily. But there was no joy in my heart, instead I was very nervous. With a slight tilt of his head and a hint of surprise, he said, "There's actually a waterfall here." These words and expressions have been interpreted countless times by Zhou Chuan in his heart, to prevent him from encountering Tang Hao and leaving himself a way out after climbing up. Entering here with the identity of honing oneself to climb high mountains is nothing more than being expelled. If you come here openly, there may not be any room for improvement. Looking quietly at the valley, after regaining his strength and soul power, Zhou Chuan stood up and walked towards the valley. Arriving in front of the waterfall, Zhou Chuan quietly looked at the waterfall, not missing a single detail. In the original work, there is a stone chamber above, where the blue silver emperor is planted, Zhou Chuan thought to himself. Looking around, at this point, Tang Hao had not yet taken action to expel himself. It seemed that he had already followed his son to the city of Soto. Zhou Chuan smiled at the corner of his mouth and started climbing again. Green light flickered on his body, and blue-silver grass appeared one by one. The first soul skill, symbiosis. The broad leaves are directly attached to the smooth stone wall, as if connected together, tightly adhering together. This is also one of the characteristics of symbiosis, and if it cannot be tightly attached together, symbiosis cannot be discussed. Dozens of vines got close to a large area, and then gradually climbed upwards. Suddenly, Zhou Chuan's gaze turned to a stone wall, where a blue-silver grass appeared to be moving. Quickly climbing over and pushing forward, the stone wall indeed sank and a cave the size of a door frame emerged. Zhou Chuan flipped in and a considerable space appeared in front of him, with a small mound in the center. A beam of moonlight shone from above, illuminating the blue-silver grass on the mound. No. It should be said to be the blue-silver emperor. The completely different vitality, although somewhat similar to the blue-silver grass, is fundamentally different. The constantly growing and powerful vitality is by no means comparable to ordinary blue-silver grass, Zhou Chuan thought to himself. At this point, Zhou Chuan did not say a word. After all, some words buried in his heart are the safest. Without any hesitation, when it's time to be decisive, even a second of delay is fatal. Zhou Chuan walked to the side of blue-silver emperor, sat cross-legged, and slowly closed his eyes. The content of the dissolving wood green immortal technique echoed through my mind, with my hands extended and placed on both sides of the blue-silver emperor, palms facing inward. The technique was activated, and a green light rose from the body. The blue-silver grass martial soul floated out of the chest. In an instant, a strange force enveloped the surroundings. The Zhou River, blue-silver grass martial soul, and blue-silver emperor form a complete structure, like a ritual. Waves of blue light drifted out of the blue-silver emperor's body and surged towards Zhou Chuan's palms. A gentle and powerful sense of power filled my hands, and then rushed towards my body like a river. Zhou Chuan's mind was tense, and the feeling of pain filled his mind, eventually shifting to his chest. A blue light gushed out from the chest, which was the soul power that had already been refined, carrying the dual imprints of Zhou Chuan and Blue-Silver Emperor. When this soul power surged towards the blue-silver grass martial soul and was absorbed by it. In an instant, a blue light emanated from within the blue-silver grass soul, directly enveloping the blue-silver emperor. The blue-silver emperor gradually became pure, as if it had been transformed into a fundamental force, surging towards the blue-silver grass martial soul. After the blue-silver grass soul absorbed this power, a complete transformation occurred. The transformation far exceeded Zhou Chuan's expectations. The blue-silver emperor, as an upper-level existence of the blue-silver grass, has a great correlation between the two. When this power was refined, Zhou Chuan's blue-silver grass evolved. Not only did it gain new strength after refining, but it also provided the resources for the final 7-in-1 fusion evolution. The most essential foundation, the blue-silver grass martial soul, and the greenwood immortal foundation have also evolved. The originally green light on his body began to shine brightly, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a sparkling blue soul power, which is the fundamental change of power. The powerful vitality erupts from within the body, which is a characteristic that emerges after the evolution of the martial soul, and also the strongest and most essential characteristic of the blue-silver emperor. The vitality that filled Zhou Chuan brought about obvious changes, and the hint of greenness in his appearance dissipated a lot, adding a soft and ethereal aura. Suddenly, a special change appeared, and Zhou Chuan's soul ring appeared. Yellow first soul ring, second soul ring. The sudden appearance of the second soul ring did not come from the blue-silver emperor, but from Zhou Chuan himself. The Rongmu Qingxian method is a different type of immortal cultivation method, and the refinement of extraordinary plants is multifaceted, with the most essential core located on the foundation. And the second point is reflected in the bloodline, which constantly compresses a person's bloodline. Although Zhou Chuan greatly avoided this using his martial soul, it did not completely disappear. But the special rules or extraordinary systems of this world, namely martial souls and soul rings, have undergone special changes. Chapter 7. Harvest, Redemption, and Activation of Crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's like Tang San possesses the blue-silver emperor bloodline and self-inspires a soul ring. Transforming a soul beast into a human form for 100,000 years will automatically generate a soul ring. The refinement of Zhou Chuan also brought about changes beyond the records of inheritance, resulting in the creation of a soul ring. This soul ring is based on refined plants, and can grow with one's own growth due to the corresponding transformation of blood and body. It would be even better to be called a sentence. It was in this moment that Zhou Chuan lost the constraint of the bottleneck, and his soul power exploded with a loud bang. In an instant, it reached level 25 and the speed slowly weakened. At level 26 and 27, it didn't stop until level 28 soul power. A bright light blue light also emanated from Zhou Chuan's body, enveloping him in all directions. Zhou Chuan opened his eyes, an uncontrollable excitement that made his face smile. The transformation is incredible, the harvest is incredible. Zhou Chuan couldn't help but whisper a few words, his excited mood difficult to calm. Looking at the second soul ring on the body, which is about 900 years old, it will continue to increase with the enhancement of cultivation and physical fitness. Although it is not a 100,000-year soul ring, Zhou Chuan is also very satisfied. After all, it is really a 100,000-year soul ring that Zhou Chuan's physique cannot bear. And this growing self-soul ring can also grow into a 100,000-year soul ring in the later stage. Until then, Zhou Chuan reluctantly suppressed his excitement and quickly stood up, looking around. This is a dangerous place and cannot be stayed for long. The 100,000-year soul bone of the blue-silver emperor seems to be also here. The idea flashed through Zhou Chuan's heart and he immediately dispelled it. I remember that soul bone was packed in an iron box, which was still very hard and difficult to open. Refining soul bones also takes a lot of time, and staying an extra second now would be extremely dangerous. It's not worth risking one's life for a soul bone, even if it's a 100,000-year soul bone. Zhou Chuan turned around and left, immediately getting away from here. To risk one's life for the Blue-Silver Emperor is because by obtaining the Blue-Silver Emperor, one can completely change oneself and obtain the capital to have everything. This capital is an innate qualification full of soul power. Zhou Chuan hurriedly moved away from here, identified a rough direction, and began to rush on, sensing his own changes. The qualifications are completely different. Although I haven't started practicing yet, I can see the difference from the control and smooth operation of soul power. Blue-Silver Emperor is a top-level martial soul, and his innate soul power will not be lower than level 7. From the perspective of the stimulation of the first cultivation of the dissolving wood green immortal technique, it should be able to fully unleash the potential of plant blood vessels. So as the foundation of the Aoki Fairy, when all the potential of the Blue-Silver Emperor's martial soul is fully stimulated, it should be a qualification with innate soul power. The second gain is in the field. Zhou Chuan's heart stirred as the blue light spread in all directions and stopped at 100 meters. All plants seem to be stimulated with life, and the natural atmosphere fills this field. This field originates from the blue-silver field, but it is different from it. Unlike in the original work, which mainly affects the field of blue-silver grass, any grass or trees within the scope will be stimulated with vitality. It is equivalent to a natural environment suitable for Zhou Chuan. The capabilities originally possessed by the blue-silver field are also possessed by this field. Suppress and spread spiritual perception, resolve negative emotions, and disguise the color of soul rings. All three abilities, except for the suppression effect, are possessed in this field. Spiritual perception spreads along the surrounding vegetation, and Chuan can sense everything. With the ability to change the color of the soul ring, it wouldn't be so bold. Zhou Chuan glanced at his second soul ring. By increasing one's cultivation level, it is possible to evolve into a purple millennium soul ring at level 30 or 40. If there is no disguise, it will be too conspicuous. This field is different from the blue-silver field, it's better to just change the name. Just call it the field of grass and trees, Zhou Chuan thought to himself. I didn't gain any spells or supernatural powers because my foundation and refining plants are the same. This soul ring and realm replaced the spells and supernatural powers. Zhou Chuan placed his perception on top of the second soul ring and was able to clearly perceive the ability of this soul ring. Assimilate. Transforming other plants into blue-green grass on a scale, which is more like assimilating and regenerating through borrowing, is also within this range of parasitic manifestations, which is a good ability. Raise your hand, and a few light dots appear in your heart, which are transformed from soul power and can grow blue-silver grass from any plant or object with soul power. A blue-silver grass grew out, and Zhou Chuan tugged hard. Collapse. A crisp sound sounded, and the blue-silver grass was not torn off. The level of resilience has increased by several levels, and now even if the top martial soul is bound by my blue-silver grass, it cannot easily break free. Zhou Chuan nodded satisfied. Besides these, the remaining big gain is the changes that vitality brings to the body. The iron cloth shirt has broken through the bottleneck, and there has been a certain change in the body's appearance, Zhou Chuan thought to himself as he quickened his pace. The speed is very fast, as if something is chasing behind. The first layer of the Gangyi realm that has been broken through is transparent, with a significant increase in defense and extremely strong attack power. It is incredibly powerful and spreads qi and blood throughout the body, possessing several small physical characteristics. Internal breathing, a slight sensation, and so on. Zhou Chuan couldn't help but take a backward look when he arrived here. An undeniable restlessness surged out of the valley as soon as I ran out. The perception became increasingly intense, with a chilling feeling. If it were in the previous life, Zhou Chuan might just think that his condition was not good, and in this world with extraordinary power, this feeling cannot be ignored. There is only one possibility of this sense of crisis, and we must find a solution, Zhou Chuan said with a tense expression, turning his head and continuing to move forward. We must think of a way. Zhou Chuan's gaze turned to his second soul ring. Will Ian's soul still exist? Shaking his head, he selected this idea from his mind. Zhou Chuan still couldn't perceive the soul. My greatest reliance. The broken wreckage. Zhou Chuan's eyes lit up. As Zhou Chuan changes, the wreckage will also undergo changes, and now it should also be different. Ding! A crisp sound sounded, and a panel appeared before Zhou Chuan's eyes, still the same as before, a pile of garbled characters and ghostly symbols. However, different changes have also emerged. Redemption Interface, Complete Eagle Claw Technique, Shadow Clone Technique, Life and Death Talisman, Small Move Jade Talisman, Taoist Meditation Skill. Without any hesitation, Zhou Chuan directly exchanged for the Small Move Jade Talisman. The light screen flickered, and the Xiaonhua Jade Taoist's meditation technique disappeared. A Jade Talisman appeared in Zhou Chuan's hand. You can still exchange it. Zhou Chuan looked at the remaining options and exchanged the full set of Eagle Claw Technique. After all, Zhou Chuan doesn't have a complete combat technique now, which happens to be a supplement. A wave of knowledge transmission surges into my mind, and when I look at it, there is only one option left in front of me, the technique of Shadow Clone. This week, Zhou Chuan also redeemed, and a scene appeared in his mind as if he were in person. The art of Shadow Clone. With a soft drink, a group of identical figures appeared, and the image passed down later disappeared. Zhou Chuan opened his eyes and looked at another interface. Crossing interface, time travel, function completed, can be connected to the replica at any time. Note. This is a real person time travel, death is real, complete the replica before returning. Reincarnation, charging. Chapter 8. Game Dungeons and Self-Defects. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhou Chuan felt the restlessness of not coming, took a deep breath, and searched around. Find a river, plop it, and jump in. Water flow can wash away the odor on a person's body, making their movements more secretive. Hiding underwater, Zhou Chuan's internal breathing played a role, allowing him to easily stay below for a long time. Following the water flow, after an unknown amount of time. It's almost over, and if you travel back from here, you shouldn't be noticed by anyone. Zhou Chuan's heart moved and he immediately began his journey. The zero charging bar of the time travel option was depleted, and a white light from Huawei enveloped Zhou Chuan, disappearing into the water in the blink of an eye. Warning! Warning! The three components of essence, qi, and spirit are missing and need to be self-checked. The essence component is normal. The essence component is normal, the qi component. Warning! The qi component is missing, and the corresponding power conversion cannot be guaranteed, and the corresponding power can be safely carried out. Start backup plan, ternary conversion. Zhou Chuan, who was in the white light, felt a chill in his heart. Don't let this disabled golden finger disintegrate in the midst of time travel, right? Before he could think much, Zhou Chuan's eyes turned black and he lost his perception. After an unknown amount of time, a figure filled with a violent aura flew over the river where Zhou Chuan had disappeared. A wave of spiritual perception swept by, and it was obvious that this was a tidal doluo. The transformation of the Soul Master System to the tidal doluo is characterized by the strength of spiritual power and the emanation of perception. That's why a soul beast that has been in human form for 100,000 years cannot deceive the tidal doluo. As long as the spiritual perception is shrouded, the general hiding method is simply decoration. If Zhou Chuan had taken 100,000 years of soul bones without any space for soul guides, he would have been looking for death. If absorbed directly in that cave, it would take an unknown amount of time, but it would be a soul bone of 100,000 years. Delaying a little time at that time would increase the possibility of death. The function of a 100,000-year soul bone is only to provide an additional ability, strengthen the body, and increase some potential. This is indeed precious to ordinary people, but for Zhou Chuan, it is not so indispensable. After transformation, the potential is at its peak, and if you want to strengthen your body, you also need to have an iron cloth shirt. Adding one more ability is even more trivial. Striving for something indispensable is adventure, and striving for something replaceable is foolishness. White light flashed by, and Zhou Chuan arrived at a strange place. Ding! A crisp voice sounded, and a light screen appeared before me, still so incomplete, with only a few pieces of information. Copy. Monghuang, type. Gamification, maximum time. 2 years and 7 months, ding. The current Dungeon World game rules are shrouded. Zhou Chuan looked at the scene before him and breathed a sigh of relief. It's okay. But then Zhou Chuan frowned and reached the ones he had just heard through time travel. The missing gas component, literally, is a function of conversion protection, Zhou Chuan said in secret. After activating the soul power within the body, everything was normal. Before I could even try my martial soul, I felt the abnormality in my body in the reappearance of the panel in front of me. Level. Normal, ability. Wood, skill. Iron body, spirit. 280/280, life. 190/190, hunger. 54/100, physical strength. 89 out of 100, properties backpack, construction. Hunger fades so quickly, and this feeling doesn't seem to disappear out of thin air, but rather feels like physical exhaustion. Zhou Chuan frowned, sensing his own changes. This feeling, along with this attribute interface, has a strange familiarity. Looking around, the white light had disappeared and everything was in sight. The dark land is scattered all around, with an exceptionally strong vitality. Vitality. Zhou Chuan furrowed his head even deeper, sensing that this feeling was transmitted from the blue-silver grass martial soul. This land deeply attracts the blue-silver grass martial soul. Zhou Chuan walked up to a tree and looked at the thigh-thick tree in front of him. He had an idea in his heart to try it out. With a burst of force under his feet, he suddenly kicked and hit the tree. Bang! The sound of impact suddenly rang out and spread all around. In theory, with Zhou Chuan's strength, one kick can directly break this tree. But now the tree in front of me is intact, without even a trace. Just the next moment, it suddenly collapsed, and neat pieces of wood appeared in place, scattered with several tree roots and different fruits, as well as several pieces of bark. It's really this kind of world. Upon seeing this scene, Zhou Chuan already knew what kind of gaming world it was. Since it is a gaming world, there must be corresponding types, nothing more than those. After seeing the game panel, there was already speculation, and now it has been confirmed. Similar to survival building games like Famine, Zhou Chuan whispered, but then frowned slightly. A part of this world is purely modern, while another part has a mysterious background and extraordinary abilities. The feeling I feel from this land should be that it has mysterious power, right? And within this land, there is a feeling of strange vitality. Just as Zhou Chuan was thinking, his scalp suddenly became numb and without any hesitation, he squatted down. The black shadow swept away from above the scalp, and Zhou Chuan quickly stepped back to look over. Hungry Wolf, level. Elite, ability. None, skills. Copperhead and Iron Bone, Steel Fang, the black wolf, the size of a calf, was staring fiercely at Zhou Chuan. Zhou Chuan immediately emitted a blue light all over his body, and 2 soul rings appeared one after another. The combination of symbiosis and assimilation has produced a magical effect. Blue-silver grass grows or transforms around it one by one. Pop! The blue-silver grass was like a whip, hitting the evil wolf directly. Zhou Chuan's eyes lit up as he could see from his perspective that the opponent's health had dropped by 2 points. The attacked wolf also moved and transformed into a black shadow, rushing towards Zhou Chuan. The opponent was very fast, and Zhou Chuan didn't have time to dodge. He gritted his teeth and put his hands in front, covering his face and neck, while controlling more blue-silver grass to beat over. The hungry wolf bit Zhou Chuan's left hand in one bite, its steel fangs piercing through flesh and blood, but it kept biting Zhou Chuan's steel muscles and bones, only to be stuck inside. The feeling of pain rushed straight to the brain and did not make Zhou Chuan collapse, but aroused his ferocity. The right hand wrapped around the neck of the hungry wolf with the back hand, and the left hand tightly stuck in the wolf's mouth, blocking his only deadly attack. Pop pop pop. The crazy beating of blue-silver grass caused the hungry wolf's health bar to rapidly decrease. Until a certain moment, Zhou Chuan felt light on his body. A faint light appeared on the hungry wolf's body, and then it disintegrated directly into individual parts. Some fur and leather, 2 pieces of wolf meat, a few bones, and wolf teeth. Looking at the scattered things around, Zhou Chuan took a slight breath. It's a close call. Zhou Chuan stood up, feeling the difference of fighting alone for the first time with these scattered items. My reaction is still not fast enough, and my emergency response methods are also very poor. Zhou Chuan knew that this was a crucial weakness of his current fighting awareness and experience. Chapter 9. Vigorous Vitality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before Zhou Chuan's time traveling, he was just an ordinary person with little combat experience and little combat consciousness. After traveling to this world, I spent most of my time practicing, and the previous year was also a cooperative way. 4 people cooperate to face the soul beast, and Zhou Chuan's own positioning is also auxiliary, not a direct confrontation with the enemy. All you need to do is use blue-silver grass for obstruction or adjuvant therapy, and all you've been exercising this year is the use of blue-silver grass. If I could roll around with old Dager, glutinous rice rolls with sweet bean flour, just now, I wouldn't be hurt by this. Zhou Chuan looked at his left hand. Under the cover of blue light, blood has stopped flowing. Blue-silver grass grows one by one around, and the field of vegetation has also expanded. It can not only assist in cultivation, but also explore the surroundings for vigilance. The health bar is only over 100, half of it is missing. Zhou Chuan looked at the health bar that was constantly recovering due to the blue-silver grass and the realm. This is a good opportunity. Although these beasts are powerful, their intelligence is not high, and they can just exercise my fighting will and instincts. There are also combat skills, and we cannot rely solely on blue-silver grass. Although close combat is not the main method, we cannot be helpless. Zhou Chuan thought of the knowledge he had exchanged before, the complete set of eagle claw technique, which could also be considered a good combat technique. Gollum. A feeling of hunger suddenly struck, ringing from his stomach. Zhou Chuan stopped and immediately looked at the 2 pieces of wolf meat. I'm so hungry. Zhou Chuan immediately opened the construction page and found torches and bonfires from it. Torch. Wood +1, hay +1, bonfire. Stone +1, wood +3, hay +2, there are stones on the ground near the hay, and once collected, a campfire was immediately set up. After Zhou Chuan grilled the wolf meat, a strange aroma rushed in, making people's appetite wild. The really shiny grilled meat, Zhou Chuan immediately started eating it. After swallowing the first bite of meat, Zhou Chuan widened his eyes. Is this vigorous vitality a characteristic of this world? Zhou Chuan was somewhat surprised. The vigorous vitality emanates from the stomach, repairing every trace in Zhou Chuan's body. The power of the iron cloth shirt's transparent realm spreads within the body, and with the assistance of these vigorous vitality, it brings a more powerful exercise effect. Surprisingly, this meat has a better effect than soul beast meat. No. The 2 cannot be compared at all, Zhou Chuan said brightly in front of his eyes. At this moment, Zhou Chuan suddenly realized that there was equally vigorous vitality around him, densely packed. Looking down, there were weeds shrouded in the field. They are all the same large leaf weeds, with green leaves on the top and red on the back. Is it because of these weeds? Zhou Chuan had a hint of speculation and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This kind of plant with vitality is just a weed, would there be some more powerful extraordinary plants? And these beasts are also very useful for my cultivation. They are really a treasure trove. Zhou Chuan finished all the grilled meat and immediately stood up, practicing a set of martial arts exercises. Qi and blood are surging, and the effect is far better than before. The vitality is stimulated in the body, becoming exceptionally strong, and the strength is directly increased by 50%, and the defense is enhanced by 1 layer. The effect is so good, and with this kind of vitality, is at a special level in this world. Zhou Chuan looked at the panel in front of him, and the information on it had already changed. Level. Elite, ability. Wood, strong vitality, skill. Iron body, strong vitality. Initial transformation of vitality, bonus for recovery effect, growth effect, exercise effect, weak lifespan, and quick self-healing from minor injuries. Level increase, maximum mental health increased by 20, and maximum health increased by 10. Zhou Chuan looked at the introduction of this new ability and felt a little sigh in his heart. This ability is too suitable for external skill techniques. Growth bonus and exercise effect bonus are already very suitable for these two effects, as well as the quick self-healing of the body caused by minor injuries. Judging from that description, it should be a very minor injury, which may be less than the size of a fingernail on the surface of the skin. But that sentence itself is the most important, representing its scope, including the body. Most of the hidden injuries in physical training are accumulated from these extremely subtle injuries. With this ability, hidden injuries are no longer a problem. I have always been afraid of accumulating too many hidden injuries and haven't let go of my cultivation because I don't have a corresponding decoction. Zhou Chuan's mouth gradually curved upwards, and his ability came at an opportune time. With the meat of vitality and this ability, Zhou Chuan was finally able to fully realize his talent. In terms of physical training, Zhou Chuan's talent is extraordinary, but due to the age of resources, he has never practiced crazily. Build a safe house first to ensure your own safety. Zhou Chuan immediately prepared to take action and gather resources from around. After all, according to this type of game, it is usually very dangerous at night. Zhou Chuan's body shimmered with blue light, a yellow and a purple soul ring appeared. Purple. Has it improved so quickly? Is it because of my physique? Zhou Chuan's gaze focused on the second purple soul ring. The changes in soul skills are also very obvious, making assimilation easier, consuming less, and time faster. The overall scope has also expanded a bit, with more than 10 vines rising on the ground around them, crazily tapping all resources. When all the resources were collected and concentrated together, Zhou Chuan walked towards the next area. A pile of materials and blue-silver grass in one place, these blue-silver grass will help assimilate and explore the dangers around with the assistance of the field. The materials near the campfire were not collected by Zhou Chuan in his backpack, after all, they were right next to him. When collecting resources from distant places, the backpack quickly becomes full. Several times, I also encountered some wild beasts, but none of them engaged in close combat. Instead, they were crazily whipped by vines from afar. Now is not the time to exercise yet. Quickly, before dark, a small courtyard and house were built. Zhou Chuan stood by the campfire, practicing his boxing skills. Qi and blood circulate with the surging force, and the vigorous vitality follows closely behind, greatly enhancing the effect of exercise. After finishing the set, Zhou Chuan felt the changes in his body. Hunger is rising again, but the effect of exercise is indeed very strong. The bonfire was roasting barbecue, and at this moment, the fragrance also wafted out. Zhou Chuan picked up the grilled meat and started eating it, quickly replenishing his hunger value. The vigorous vitality has also been replenished into the body. You can also practice eagle claw technique tomorrow, Zhou Chuan thought to himself. If iron cloth shirt is a pure body training technique, then eagle claw technique can only be considered as half of a body training technique, which exercises both hands. The other part is the capture and some ruthless moves. There is also the technique of shadow clone. I'm afraid this thing won't work, right? After all, there's no chakra, but the knowledge and experience of inheritance in it are quite unique. Zhou Chuan pondered. Suddenly, the sky and earth darkened. There is only a small courtyard around a campfire, still shining with light. The ultimate terror came from the darkness, and in that unknown darkness, it seemed like ghosts and gods were hidden. The mental exhaustion and sense of oppression are worth keeping Zhou Chuan's whole body tense. Chapter 10. Fire Cloud Flower. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The consumption of mental value has doubled. Zhou Chuan looked at his mental value with his eyes. The frequent use of abilities throughout the day only consumed Zhou Chuan's spirit by less than 80, leaving 224. Spirit. 223/300, just now it was dark and I had a bit of energy. It seems like I still need to rest at night. Zhou Chuan turned around and walked into the room, choosing to rest. Sleeping all night, dawn in the blink of an eye. Spirit. 300 of 300, life. 200 out of 200, hunger. 55 out of 100, physical strength. 100 out of 100, stepping out the door and looking at the bright sky, a ray of sun hung high in the sky. Is there no process of sunrise and sunset? Zhou Chuan frowned slightly. After watching for a while, I didn't notice any difference and continued hunting. In this dungeon world, the more active you are, the faster you get hungry, and correspondingly, you can eat more food. The vigorous vitality is rapidly consumed, strengthening the body through Zhou Chuan's exercise and battles. The Iron Cloth Shirt Gang E realm has 3 levels, breaking through the limitations of the body and bones, penetrating the whole body, refining the internal organs, and finally ensuring no leakage throughout the body. Transparent, visceral, without leakage. The cultivation process starts from the outside in, and at this step, the meridians will also be refined. As a result, the second soul ring continuously increases its lifespan, enhancing all aspects of soul skills. Correspondingly, it also drives the improvement of soul power cultivation. Zhou Chuan fights against ordinary and elite level beasts every day, and has not encountered any other level beasts yet. In addition to fighting, I am practicing eagle claw technique, and my 5 fingers are even more resilient and powerful. The technique of shadow separation cannot be practiced at all, but the entire cultivation process and the resulting inheritance images are clearly remembered in the mind. More than 10 days passed quickly. Click. The crisp sound of bones rang out, and Zhou Chuan's right hand locked the neck of a hungry wolf, easily crushing the bone. With a splash, the dead hungry wolf fell to the ground and then decomposed into pieces of material. This hungry wolf is bigger than the last one, but it no longer poses any threat to me. Zhou Chuan stood in place, and the weeds in all directions were constantly transformed into blue-silver grass. The entire connected blue-silver grass, under the influence of the domain, transmits a weak perception towards Zhou Chuan. It's almost a kilometer, isn't it? Zhou Chuan felt the distance of the safe house and looked into the distance. There is a special plant scent in that direction, and Zhou Chuan is going to take a look. I have been hunting wild animals and cultivating my physique around these days, and I have almost passed the initial period of rapid growth. I can explore this world now. Zhou Chuan advanced in that direction, and the blue-silver grass assimilated from under his feet in all directions. This can not only prevent losing direction, but also provide an additional layer of perception to prevent danger from all directions. As he kept getting closer to the scent of the plant, Zhou Chuan could feel a sense of dryness and heat from it. Subsequently, a peculiar flower appeared before Zhou Tian's eyes. Sparkling red petals rose one by one, shrouded in mist and smoke like clouds. Fire Cloud Flower. An extraordinary plant with pure flame power. When consumed, it can burn impurities in the body, making vitality more vigorous. It can break through elite-level bottlenecks and obtain flame talent seeds. Repeated use can enhance talent seeds, breaking through the elite bottleneck. It turns out we still need extraordinary plants. Zhou Chuan suddenly realized in his heart. In the past 2 weeks, Zhou Chuan has made great progress. The vitality is very strong and has reached a limit. The strength of defense has increased several times in all aspects, and it is difficult to achieve significant enhancement. Suddenly, a heat wave came. Zhou Chuan bent down and rolled, avoiding 2 red lights and shadows in front and behind. A flame fell to the ground, followed closely by a second red shadow of a python that was thicker than its arm by 2 circles. This snake has red scales all over its body, and its bloodthirsty mouth is emitting heat. It opens its mouth and spits out a fireball. Pop pop pop. 4 or 5 blue-silver grass vines were thrown out, directly hitting the fireball and smashing it with a bang. Flames lingered on the vines and ignited. Although Blue-Silver Emperor is a top-level martial soul, he cannot avoid attribute restraint. Although it can withstand a moment, it is still slowly burning. Flame Python, Level. Awakening, Ability. Awakening, Vitality, Talent, Flame, Skills. Talent-derived Fireball, Talent-derived Burn, Awakening. Next level. This message flashed through Zhou Chuan's mind. Then he swept away his thoughts and focused on facing the python in front of him. Whether you want to obtain that extraordinary plant or the flesh and blood of the python in front of you, it is not an easy task. The flame python straightened up and stared coldly at Zhou Chuan, spitting out its snake-like nature as if exploring the information around it. Perhaps it was because Zhou Chuan's level confused it, causing it to suddenly explode. Its speed is very fast, but Zhou Chuan's fighting over the past month has not been ineffective. The blue light suddenly bloomed, with vines blocking the oncoming python from before my eyes. A few vines pulled on the python, causing it to slow down for a moment. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhou Chuan grabbed the python's 7-inch finger with his left hand, like a steel nail, and fiercely grabbed it. Ding ding. The crisp voice made Zhou Chuan's face slightly change, and the hardness of the python's body exceeded imagination. The attack, which could easily pierce through flesh and leather, and crush steel and iron bones, only pierced through the skin and slightly deformed the python's body. Hiss. The sound of the fiery python was accompanied by pain, as it opened its bloody mouth and aimed at Zhou Chuan, with a blazing red light gathering in its mouth. Zhou Chuan's expression remained calm, waiting for this moment. The vine quickly extended and wrapped around the mouth of the fox-hunting python, then tightly contracted. And the right hand took the opportunity to grip the mouth, tightly closing it together. Bang! A muffled vibration sounded, and the blood strip of the flame python instantly disappeared in half, and the pupils seemed to be dull. At this moment, Zhou Chuan kept pounding the python's head with his left hand, and the vines were also wildly whipped. Then the blood bar gradually emptied, with a bang. It has become a material of the same place. Zhou Chuanchang breathed a sigh of relief, calmed his rapid heart, and shook his right hand, which was somewhat stiff due to the explosive force. This python weighs only 50 pounds at most, which is incomparable to a hungry wolf the size of a calf. However, in terms of strength, defense speed, and attack power, it is far stronger than the opponent. Zhou Chuan sighed a bit. The strength derived from the increase in vitality level has exceeded the limits of physical fitness. Receiving all the fallen flesh and blood materials into his backpack, Zhou Chuan's gaze turned to the extraordinary plant. Entering this fiery cloud flower, Zhou Chuan could feel the power of flames and life, as if the two were perfectly blended together. Picking it, it immediately turned into a long, crystal-clear red flower, like flesh. Put it in the backpack, Zhou Chuan returns. After all, we have explored here, and I don't know how many beasts there are. They probably also need this extraordinary thing. And the safe house is much safer, after all, the surroundings have already been cleaned up.